Doctors are now raising the alarm after Scrappy's condition took an unexpected turn. Despite his efforts to get better, rumors circulating in the hospital corridors indicate that optimism is evaporating. Medical professionals are becoming more skeptical, according to people familiar with the matter, and his family and followers are shocked by the revelation. Is it possible that nobody wanted to face this moment? The question still stands. Will Scrappy prevail, or are we seeing the end of a tragic war? As tensions rise, fervent prayers are offered, and painful decisions are imminent. You won't believe what we discovered, so stay tuned. The environment surrounding Scrappy is getting thicker every day, and his fight for health has taken a terrible turn. There was optimism only a few weeks ago, since physicians thought he may recover with proper time and rest. Now, though, the atmosphere has changed now. Medical professionals are no longer hopeful, according to family sources. The ominous words that are being spoken behind closed doors are, "He's losing his prospects." The internet went crazy as soon as this startling update was released. Desperately looking for clarification, fans flocked to social media. Was Scrappy really losing the battle? Could there be nothing else to do? Even while the public is desperate for answers, the truth is still kept hidden beyond the hospital's walls, and only a select few, his inner circle, his closest family members, and of course, the physicians, who now appear to be more worried than ever, know it. The atmosphere in the hospital is solemn. Even Mama D, Scrappy's mother, is having difficulty maintaining her composure while being a rock for her son. She has reportedly been spotted roaming the hallways with a worried expression on her face and muttering prayers to herself. Her typically strong and self-assured demeanor has given way to something far more vulnerable, a mother terrified of losing her son. Bambi, Scrappy's wife, has hardly left his side in the interim. Hours pass while she sits next to him, clutching his hand and keeping an eye out for any progress. On the inside, though, the anxiety is consuming her. She was heard stating in a low, frantic voice, "I can't lose him." Not in this manner, but not everyone is responding to the issue in the same way. Old scars are coming to the surface and tensions are increasing. According to sources, Mama D and Bambi have already had several run-ins at the hospital. Hospital workers even witnessed one furious argument. The source of the dispute: command. While Bambi maintains that, as his wife, she should have the last word in matters regarding her son's care, Mama D feels she knows what's best for him. "You must allow me to act in my son's best interests." During one of their heated arguments, Mama D reportedly lost her temper. And I'm his wife. "You can't ignore me as if I'm unimportant," Bambi retaliated. Even the nurses had to step in and gently remind them that Scrappy wanted peace, not fighting, because the tension was so high. Emotions are strong during crisis, but neither woman is giving in. The hospital was rocked by a fresh development just as the family was fighting to stay together. Everyone was shocked by what was shown in the room when Scrappy's chief physician requested an urgent meeting. The doctor said somberly, "The progress we were hoping for. It's not happening. We're making every effort, but we must now exercise realism." There was silence in the room. Those were words no one wanted to hear. "What do you say?" Bambi's voice faltered. "That you won't actually make it." With cautious word choice, the doctor stressed, "We're not saying that just yet." However, his body isn't reacting the way we need it to at the moment. Furthermore, the result could not be what we had hoped for if nothing changes quickly. Everyone in the room was crushed by the weight of those remarks. Bambi's eyes filled with tears, but she resisted the need to cry. She wasn't prepared to abandon her spouse. In contrast, Mama D appeared to have been struck by a ton of bricks. "But it's still possible, isn't it?" She pushed, clinging to any glimmer of hope. The physician paused. And just that hesitancy said a lot. Following the doctor's heartbreaking announcement, the family was forced to make a difficult decision. Despite the bleak chances, should they continue to battle for Scrappy's recovery? Or ought they to brace themselves for the worst? There was no doubt in Bambi's mind. "He is powerful. He can overcome this," she emphasized. "I'm not going to give up on him, regardless of what the doctors say." But Mama D wasn't entirely certain. She was terrified that she would have to watch her son suffer. She muttered, "We have to be realistic," as though uttering the words aloud would make them come true. "I don't want to witness his suffering indefinitely." Already at a breaking point, the tension between them felt insurmountable at this time. However, one individual had not yet contributed: Breland, Scrap's stepson. Breland had been spared most of the mayhem at such a young age. However, he was aware that something was seriously amiss. "Will Daddy be all right?" In the tiniest, most naive voice he asked. Mama D and Bambi were too weak to respond to him. Because of the truth, in reality, nobody knew. Scrappy's condition didn't change as the minutes passed, and the optimism that had previously pervaded the hospital corridors was starting to wane as physicians' skepticism grew. However, just when it appeared like the worst was still to come, yet another startling discovery was poised to upend everything. Tension filled the hospital hallways, and the atmosphere grew thicker by the hour. Scrappy's condition was not getting better, and his family was still thinking about the doctor's concerns. If nothing changes quickly, the results could not be what we had hoped for. Bambi continued hearing those words over and over in her mind, but she didn't accept them. As the medical staff braced itself for the worst, she held on to hope. She clutched Scrappy's hand and muttered to herself, "No, this isn't over. He will engage in combat. He must." However, not everyone agreed with her steadfast conviction. Sitting in the hospital lounge, Mama D's eyes were sad and far away. Her voice cracked as she whispered, "I'm not sure how much more of this I can handle. It's breaking my heart to see my baby in this state." At that moment, the tension was broken by an unexpected voice. "Stop acting like he's already gone," Bambi yelled as she entered the room. Exhaustion and frustration were seen in her eyes. The head of Mama D jerked up. "Pardon me?" With a harsh tone, Bambi went on, "You're sitting here, talking like he doesn't have a chance." "Well, I don't think that's true. I'm not giving up on my husband." With her hands trembling with passion, Mama D stood up. "You also believe that I want to give up, that I'm not constantly praying for him, that my son doesn't cause me to cry myself to sleep. Then quit pretending that we should be ready for everything." Bambi's voice lifted. "He needs us to be resilient, not crumble." The dispute swiftly became heated, with voices rising in anguish and frustration. Outside the room, nurses who were already accustomed to the tension between the two women exchanged nervous looks. The door abruptly opened as the yelling peaked, and Scrappy's doctor entered, his expression abnormally agitated. With their hearts racing, both women instantly fell silent. The doctor responded forcefully, "I need to talk to you both." Now, they followed him silently into Scrappy's room, where he lay still and breathing shallowly. In the background, machines beeped softly, and it was nearly unbearable to see him in this state. The physician was silent for a moment. "We have been keeping a careful eye on his health, and we have found something concerning." There was a thick quiet in the room. "What is it?" Bambi hardly raised her voice above a whisper. The physician let out a breath. "Indications of organ distress are present. His body is not reacting well to the medication, and if this keeps up, we might be facing a total breakdown of the system." Bambi stumbled back, as though the words had hit her in the body. No, it isn't feasible." With tears welling up in her eyes, Mama D covered her mouth. "Oh my God." The doctor's expression stayed solemn. "We must talk about our alternatives." Bambi angrily shook her head. "There is just one choice. We continue to battle. We take any necessary action." Mama D paused, her face ripped with pain. "However, what if his body is unable to handle it any longer?" Bambi turned on her, her enraged eyes flashing. "Avoid. Don't say that. I'm not going to give up on him." The tense atmosphere in the room was oppressive. However, a faint sound caused them to freeze before they could both speak again. A moan. A faint, hardly perceptible moan. They glanced at Scrappy. There was a faint twitch in his fingertips. He opened his mouth as though he wanted to speak. "Difficult?" Bambi ran to his side and took hold of his hand. "Can you hear me, baby?" His eyelids twitched, attempting to open with difficulty. Even though it was faint, his respiration was shifting. Mommy D let out a gasp. "He's waking up? Oh God." The doctor's eyes widened in amazement as he examined his vitals instantly. "His levels are changing." Hope swept through the space. "It's me," Bambi muttered, tears running down her cheeks. "You're all right, baby. You will be all right." But then, a terrible thing happened. The machine's beeping abruptly stopped. There was an ear-splitting alert. Scrappy's breathing became irregular as his body trembled a little. "No! What's going on?" Bambi let out a cry. The physician's expression hardened. "He's collapsing. Hurry and get the crash cart in here." He gave the nurses a yell. There was panic. Doctors and nurses hurried into the room, pushing Mama D and Bambi out of the way. "Scrappy, remain here." Mama D broke down in tears and went on her knees. In sheer panic, Bambi shook her head and covered her mouth. The hope that had pervaded the room was suddenly vanishing once more. It felt like a nightmare for the next few moments. In a panic, the doctors tried to stabilize him. It seemed like every second went on forever. Then, amid the confusion, came a flatline sound. Bambi's throat broke into a scream. No, 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 please. Unable to breathe, Mama D gripped her chest tightly. The physicians persisted. Raise the charge to 200. It's clear. Scrappy's body gave a start. No answer. Once more. It's clear. One more shot. The beeping came back. His heart continued to beat, but only by a slim margin. The doctor turned to the distraught family as the turmoil began to calm down. He responded, he's alive, but in a somber tone. However, time is running short. Bambi nearly passed out from strain on her legs. How do we proceed? After hesitating, the doctor eventually uttered the words that would alter everything. There is one final choice, but it carries a risk. And the nightmare was far from ended after that. The hospital room felt oppressively tense. Scrappy had just been dragged back from the brink, but he was barely alive. His body was barely hanging on as the machines beeped in a jumbled pattern. Bambi's fingers were shaking as she gripped his hand. A danger. What sort of danger? Her voice was hoarse from crying as she demanded. It was impossible to read the doctor's face. We can try an experimental procedure. There is no certainty that it will succeed, and there is a considerable likelihood of problems. Mama D's heart pounded as she wiped away her tears. What complications? The physician paused before responding. He already has a feeble body. There is a possibility that you won't survive the process if we proceed. However, his odds are significantly worse if we don't do it. The decision's weight fell heavily on them. Bambi was having trouble breathing. You're implying that we must either take the chance or we will undoubtedly lose him. The physician gave a solemn nod. Bambi looked over to Mama D. Unimaginable pain flooded each of their eyes as they met. They weren't fighting for once. Standing on the precipice of an impossible decision, they were only two women who loved Scrappy. Mama D took a deep breath. Her voice was hardly audible above a whisper as she stated, "We must do it." With a tear streaming down her cheek, Bambi nodded. We have no other option. The doctor nodded briefly. After that, we'll get ready for surgery right away. The hour that followed seemed to drag on forever. Mama D, Bambi, and a few close relatives were left pacing outside, their nerves completely shattered, while Scrappy was hurried into the operation room. Tears were already streaming down Erica Dixon's face as she hurried inside the hospital. What on earth is happening? She insisted. I just noticed on the internet that Scrappy. Bambi turned to her, looking tired. He is undergoing surgery. Erica, it's horrible. Erica's face fell flat. I am at a loss for words. Mama D sobbed, her voice choking. None of us do. At that moment, a member of the hospital staff approached and spoke quietly. The press is out there. They are seeking a statement because the news has traveled quickly. Bambi angrily shook her head. No, nothing to say. Not until we have some information. But it was already too late. Speculation was already rampant on the internet. Is little Scrappy near death? According to doctors, there isn't much hope. Scrappy is in our prayers, and his family is bracing for the worst. Social media was inundated with love and concern comments from fans. Some celebrities assumed the worst when they began posting their support. Worse, there were already rumors circulating. The scenario was made much more tumultuous by rumors that Bambi and Mama D had been fighting at Scrappy's bedside. Others conjectured that something malevolent was directly responsible for Scrappy's predicament. With trembling hands, Bambi browsed through her phone. This is not something I can do. People talking about him as if he's already dead bothers me. Mama D put a hand on Bambi's shoulder and inhaled deeply. Then don't. At the moment, Scrappy is the only thing that counts. Bambi didn't push her away for the first time in what seemed like an eternity. Hours went by. The surgical staff remained inside. Every minute was agony. The doors eventually swung open. The doctor emerged with an inscrutable face. People all leaped to their feet. Bambi's heart was racing. Is he all right? The doctor paused for a long moment before responding. The procedure went well. The room echoed with a gasp. Bambi nearly passed out on her knees. Oh my God. Mama D cried in relief and covered her face. I'm grateful, Lord. Erica exhaled a trembling breath. So he'll be all right. The doctor's face became a little more serious. We haven't been cleared yet. Although he survived the procedure, the next 24 hours are crucial. Yes, he has a possibility if his body reacts favorably. But if not, he left the sentence hanging. He didn't have to. Bambi gave a brief nod. Is he visible to us? The physician paused. Just for a second. He is still not conscious. The sight of Scrappy hooked up to machines was still heartbreaking as they walked into his room. But this time there was a glimmer of hope. Bambi took his hand and sat next to him. You did it, baby, she said. You remain here. Mama D was standing next to her kid, stroking his forehead. Baby, you're not finished yet. You must awaken for us. Erica shook her head and let out a breath. Scrap, damn you. Everyone out here was afraid of you. The only sound in the room was the gentle beep of the equipment. Then there was a sound, so faint it was almost unreal. A raspy, feeble voice. You guys are too noisy. Bambi's head jerked upward. Difficult. His eyelids were fluttering. Mommy D let out a gasp. My goodness, Scrappy's fingers quivered a little. His mouth twitched once more. I'm exhausted. Bambi's cheeks filled with tears. My goodness, you're awake, sweetie. Mama D broke down in tears. Thank God. There was an overwhelming sense of relief in the room. Startled, the doctor intervened. Well, this came as a surprise to me. Bambi chuckled despite her tears. For you, that's Scrappy. Scrappy gently blinked at them. You guys are acting like I passed away or something. Erica wiped away her tears and grinned. Very close. Scrappy mustered the tiniest, weakest smile despite the agony and fatigue. And hope wasn't dwindling for the first time in what seemed like an eternity. One thing is certain as Scrappy battles his way back. This has been the hardest battle of his life. The world has been watching, waiting for the next news. His family has been pushed to the edge, and the fans have been holding their breath. Will he heal completely? Will his connections be forever altered by this experience? Above all, what will happen to Scrappy following this near-death encounter? Let's hear your opinions on this serious matter, since we are certain that you have them. Tell us in the comments below if you believe Scrappy will overcome this setback with greater vigor. Or will his life be altered in ways we cannot even fathom as a result of this health scare? Remember to hit the like button, subscribe, and enable notifications so you never miss an update if you want to be informed of every development in this story. We have the most recent drama, and we promise you won't want to miss what comes next.